Hey everyone, how's it going? It's Russell here, and if you've been following the channel, you might already know that currently Parliament isn't in session, but just because it's not in session doesn't mean that politicians aren't getting up to anything, because in what feels like a pre-election press conference and announcement blitz, Trudeau and other politicians have taken to the road announcing up to $5.13 billion of spending in the past week alone.
Today, I can announce that the federal government will provide up to $1.3 billion. Hardworking families deserve better, but our economy deserves better as well. We need to step up as we learn the lessons from this pandemic and build back better. If you think these ones are big, you got to know the ones they're planning on building are 2.5 times longer than the ones we have presently right here. That's big. This is what building back better is all about.
So in this video, we're going to go over what actually is going into this $5.13 billion of new spending, as well as a new plan that was announced to bring back 1 million jobs to Canadians, and some pretty major criticisms that have been laid against Trudeau in the wake of all this. But before we do, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell to keep supporting Canadian content being created right here on the YouTube platform. And make sure to check out the links in the description where you can open up various investing accounts, and that helps out the channel a lot if you do so, so thanks for that. But let's dive into this. We're actually going to start off with the smallest in terms of dollars announcement and work our way up to the biggest. The smallest announcement was from that last clip, and it was $25 million that Trudeau and the Liberals are going to put towards creating new wind turbines in Gaspé, Quebec. That's the smallest and least broadly consequential announcement of the ones we're going to go over here today. But the next one actually jumps up significantly to $605 million. Now, that was announced so that the Liberals can start rolling out their $10 per day childcare plan starting in Nova Scotia. It was a specific deal between Nova Scotia and Trudeau and the Liberal government. This $605 million is supposed to be spread out over the next 5 years because they actually don't expect to get down to that $10 per day rate until I believe it's 2026. And it's actually part of a $26.7 billion plan that was announced by the Liberals to bring this to every single province. If you've been following my channel, you'll know that we covered Bill C-30, the Budget Implementation Act, pretty heavily. It had things inside of it like a CRB extension and reduction, among many other things. You might remember that I mentioned it was an absolute mammoth of a bill, I think around 700 pages, and one of the things that they snuck in was this childcare spending, allowing them to actually make these commitments. They say right here that they were Division 33 of Part 4 authorized the making of payments to the provinces for early learning and childcare for the fiscal year beginning on April 1st, 2021. So they don't actually have the authorization to put out these major numbers. They can't actually fund the entirety of these projects, but at least for this year, that portion of it, they actually can because of this Bill C-30 that is now officially received royal assent. Trudeau's next press conference funding announcement was actually interrupted by a bunch of protesters, and I think you're going to be able to hear them in the background of this next clip.
Thank you all for being here. By working together, we will get results for Canadians, and that's what really matters. Places south of the Fraser River, like Surrey and Langley, are growing fast and have been for years. So with more families choosing this as home, the demand for good, efficient transit has gone up. And that's why we're here today, to meet this need and to make communities in the region more connected. Today, I can announce that the federal government will provide up to $1.3 billion for the Surrey-Langley SkyTrain extension.
So if you were able to hear it over the air horns and the yelling, Trudeau announced $1.3 billion in spending to finish the SkyTrain, a long overdue extension of the transit system in BC. And that's actually taken quite a long time to go through. And that's what Trudeau has been criticized for by the leader of the Conservative government, Erin O'Toole. Take a look at this. Erin O'Toole said that if they win the fall federal election, which they all expect is going to happen, they actually would also fund the SkyTrain, but they're calling Trudeau out saying, hey, we've been waiting for this forever. We've been waiting for the expansion of this transit since 2019 when that was an election promise. And so he's calling out Trudeau for not actually taking action until it seems like there's going to be an election, at which point he makes all these announcements to try to sort of garner some support. And similar criticisms aren't just coming from the Conservatives, they're coming from other parties too, but we're going to get to that in a minute after we go over this final announcement, which was by far the largest, and it was a $3.2 billion announcement that would have the Liberal government, again, roll out the same childcare program, but this time in British Columbia. You can see here in a press conference put out by Trudeau that they're going to be spending $3.2 billion over the next 5 years to regulate early learning and childcare only for children under 6 years of age in British Columbia, and they're hoping to get to that $10 a day childcare, but by the end of 2022, they want to at least see a reduction by 50% in terms of how much it costs to send a child to these childcare services. Now, during that press conference where Trudeau and the NDP leader, the Premier of BC, John Horgan, during that press conference, they were very excited and congratulatory of each other for working together and signing a deal. Now, this is a little bit awkward because it comes at the very same time that the leader of the NDP on the federal level, Jagmeet Singh, is calling out Trudeau for not actually getting anything done. A little bit awkward, and a reporter called Jagmeet Singh out on that just a few days ago. Listen in on this.
Just respectfully, Mr. Singh, I don't know how you can call this show. He's signed a deal with the BC government, and one of your strongest allies, Premier Horgan, was the first premier to sign on to it. So how can you call the Prime Minister out for saying that he's all show on childcare when he's just signed a deal with one of your strongest political allies to get what would likely be a major campaign promise checked off for him?
Again, I want to be very clear. I want this to happen. I think this is incredibly exciting. And I am proud that John Horgan, as the BC Premier, has been leading the charge on affordable childcare. It has made a difference in so many people's lives. Every day I meet someone who has been impacted by the new pilot project here in BC, how it's made a difference, a life-changing difference in their lives. But if Justin Trudeau goes to an election, then he does not mean this. That is not a serious commitment. It means that he's looking for power and he's not interested in getting the work done. I'm interested in making sure we actually deliver childcare. So if that's the case and Justin Trudeau wants to do it, let's continue working. Let's go back to Parliament in September. Let's pass legislation, sign more deals across the country, and get this to happen.
So he essentially says two things here. One, he accuses Justin Trudeau of actually not planning on actually getting this work done because he thinks that he's going to call an election, meaning that all of these promises could be jeopardized by the results of that election. And second, he sort of insinuates that, hey, the only reason that they're doing so well in getting these deals signed is because of the strong NDP leadership in BC with John Horgan. So he's sort of calling out the idea that it might be potentially bad for Jagmeet Singh to see the NDP and the Liberals work on a project so closely together. And he followed that up with even more accusations saying that Justin Trudeau, hey, he makes big promises, but he doesn't actually get anything done. This is definitely the NDP stance, and the Conservatives are saying the same thing. So the criticisms are broad across the political spectrum, but they're calling it out saying, hey, in the 2019 election, they were going to raise minimum wage on a federal level to $15 an hour. They haven't done that fully. They've left too many workers out without access. The NDP put forward a dental care plan for the entire country, and Trudeau voted against it. The universal pharmacare, same thing. Liberals forcing workers back to work. Essentially, Jagmeet Singh is saying here, well, Trudeau, you can talk a big talk, but what have you actually successfully implemented and done? So the NDP and Singh are saying, hey, we still have more work to do. We don't want an election right now. Trudeau, if you actually want to get things done, don't call an election and we'll work with you in the House of Commons to get those things done. That's currently their stance. But even though they don't want an election, it really does seem like they're planning for one, because just yesterday they held a press conference where they said that the NDP has a new plan to bring in 1 million new jobs for Canadians. Listen to this.
We want to build in Canada. We want to build infrastructure. We want to build public transit. We want to build to create jobs. Building will make our communities better, more livable, and also create jobs and opportunities. And finally, when we're building that infrastructure, when we're building that public transit, we want to use Canadian products. We want to use Canadian steel, Canadian aluminum. We want to make sure that we are using Canadian-made products when we are building and expanding. And so I'm really honored to lay out our jobs plan, a plan that will create 1 million jobs and, really importantly, improve the quality of work and protect workers. That to us is so important.
So we hear a little bit about this plan in this clip, but we're about to go into more detail. One thing that's interesting is that he really emphasizes, hey, getting Canadian products, producing Canadian things. I think that's not a bad idea, but it does sound a lot like the Joe Biden's plan in the States called Buy America, right? Where they're only going to be buying or incentivizing buying of U.S. goods in the infrastructure projects and as well in just consumer projects. But in classic Jagmeet Singh and NDP NDP fashion, they actually got into a little bit more detail about this plan in a Twitter thread. Let me show you that. So in this Twitter thread, he goes over some of the details on how he plans to bring back 1 million jobs for Canadians. He says he wants better jobs, more jobs, paying and protecting the essential workers who got us through the pandemic. And he calls out Trudeau again, saying he only helps those at the very top. And he says, hey, Jagmeet Singh, I'm going to fight for the people, for good jobs in an economy that works for everyone. And here's my plan, I'll put that in quotation marks, you'll see why, to create 1 million plus new jobs. He goes into more detail here, saying we need to build better workplaces because we know that creating jobs means treating workers as essential at all times, not just during emergencies like the pandemic. Building up the community, putting people to work, building up our communities, because building housing and infrastructure will lead to more jobs and stronger communities in every region. I like the sound of building more housing. If you watch this channel, we talk a lot about that. Making what we need in Canada, helping Canadians make products that people want and need, will position us to fight the climate crisis and build the economy of the future. And we've got to take care of each other, creating good jobs for those who care for our loved ones. Good wages, benefits, and stable full-time work are the basics that the workers deserve. Now, this is a little bit interesting, and I'll tell you why. He lays out these ideas and these thoughts about, hey, this would be some good things to have, and this seems to be a trend with the NDP, which is a little bit frustrating, and not to say that other political parties don't do it too, but there's no link or anything that actually has any details on how he plans to achieve these goals. If you followed the channel, you'll know that we often like to get into the nitty-gritty and the details of things to find out, like, hey, what does this program actually look like? How is it going to work? And at this point, we just don't have enough information about what this 1 million job plan would look like, whether or not it would actually work. And I think this is one of the biggest challenges for the NDP leading into an election. Well, they have no real history of federal leadership. Would they even be able to execute these goals, these lofty goals that they have for themselves? I guess we'll have to wait and find out. But I just wanted to make this video to make sure that you're staying updated with what's going on, what people are saying, especially if there's going to be an election. It's going to be important that we have an idea of what the track record is for some of these people over the next few months. So if you haven't already done so, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you can keep getting updated on this, along with many other topics that I think are going to be rather important for Canadians like you. And of course, let me know what you think about all of this. You know, on the channel, we like to stay right down the middle. So no matter what your opinion is, whether you support one political party or the other, let me know down there in the comments what you think about everything that's going on. And hey, while you're down there, check out the links in the description where you can open up a Wealth Simple account, one of the best places to buy stocks here in Canada, low fees, low commissions, or Newton if you want to buy cryptocurrency in Canada. That's one of my personal favorites. You can, with both of those, get, I believe, $25 when you trade $100. So check that out. It supports the channel a lot. And you can check out the link in the description for the wonderful course on Canada Money Mastery, building wealth right here in Canada. But with all of that said, thanks so much for watching, everybody. I really hope this video has helped you out at least a little bit, and I'll see you next time.